So welcome back to March's Intermediate Sampler here at Close to Home in Southington. So what you're going to need to do is bring in your completed February block beginning this Friday, March 8th, and you'll have until April 30th to bring your February block in to get March's kit free. So this weekend only, Friday and Saturday, March 8th and 9th, we will have select finish the bolts. They will be 50% off. Some new ones that we've pulled. I'm sure you're going to like them. Also, I wanted to mention some classes that are going on here in Southington. We have a little star shower. It's a very cute small quilt. We have a beginning quilting series. It's a 5-week class, once a week. We have a kids camp coming up this summer, and it's 2 weeks of 4 days each. There is the Mega Dream Bag, very nice all-purpose bag. And of course, you can always sign up for both Creative Sewing Club and Embroidery Club going on throughout the year. Okay, so come in, see what we're working on, and certainly come in and pick up your new kit. All right. So this month we will be making more strip sets. I have a ruler that I think is going to help you cut your strips a little bit easier. It's the Creative Grids Stripology Squared Mini. Okay, because we do need 1.5 inch strips and a couple 3-inch. So we'll get into that in a minute. So you can certainly do the block using your own Creative Grid ruler, but the stripology, wait till you see it. It's a lot, it's very easy to use and it's very handy. So the month's block is really made up of 3 units. We have our center unit, just one of those. Our north, south, east, and west units, where we are using our folded corner clipper to make half a square and a square. We're just putting those on the edges. And then the final unit is our corners, which we're going to be squaring up and trimming our half square triangles and using our pretty much the same strip sets as we have in the center. All these are going to be cut with the stripology ruler. So let's get into the cutting of the pieces of fabric. The white, you're going to need a 1.5 inch strip and out of that, just 2 squares. You're going to need a 3-inch strip, also 2 3-inch squares. These we're going to draw a diagonal line because we're going to match those up with the deep red for our half square triangles. Okay, and then we're going to trim them. Then you're going to need 8 2.5 inch squares. Again, those are going to be for the folded corner clippers that are going to be going on the corners of our blocks, of our multi-white circles. The pink, it's about 6 by, I'm going to say about 8 or 9 inches long. So you're going to cut the long strips at 1.5. You'll need 4 of those. Each strip is cut a 4.5 and a 3.5. All right, and those will be going around this unit, 3.5 and 4.5 for the pink. All right. The deep red, again, I need the 3.5, 2 3.5s for our folded, for our half square triangles, and 2 strips at 1.5 inches each for our strip sets. And the white multi-circle, I just need 4 4.5 inch squares. All cut with the stripology ruler, very simple. The coral and the yellow, those are 1.5 inch strips. You'll see those on the, nothing fancy about those. You'll see those on the cutting on your directions. So let's look at the stripology ruler a little bit. Creative Grid puts out many different sizes of the stripology ruler. The one I have here is the smallest. It's called the Stripology Squared Mini. You can cut all kinds of strips, strip widths, back quarters. You can cut 1/4 inch increments. You can cut 7/8 inch increments, which we'll get into down the road a little bit. But you'll notice that there's notches on the 1/2 inch marks, and that's where your rotary cutter goes, and then there's a gap right down this line, and that's where you're going to be cutting. So you can't really mess up too much, and what's nice about the 1.5 inch cuts is they are all clearly marked with the stars on our ruler this time. So we're going to fold some fabrics, we're going to cut some strips, and then we'll get into trimming. I'll show you how to trim up your 1/2 square triangle using the ruler and all the markings on this ruler for that. All right, so let's get crack-a-lacking. The first thing I want to do is cut my white, because that has the most cuts going on. So I'll just turn my ruler so it faces me. I'm going to put the 0 mark at the bottom of my strip, and I want to push this over, and you'll notice that I have a raw edge here, and I just want to kind of clean up that edge. And the first thing I want to do is cut a 1.5 inch strip. So I just lay this down. It's got grips all over it. It's not going anywhere. I'm just going to lay my blade right in that little gap there, just push down and cut. All right, so the next one I need is a 1.5. So I'm just going to measure over my 1.5 and get my 1.5 inch strip. Then I need a 3. So I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3. Cut my 3 inch strip for my 1/2 square triangles, and I ran out because I have the small one. If I had the big one, I could keep going. But we're gonna just put these aside for now, and I'm just gonna move this over and keep on going. So now I need 2.5s. So I go ahead, and the easiest part to do on this is I think I'm just gonna fold this in half, and that way I can just cut them at one time. And I'm gonna put the fold on the 0 mark. And again, I'm going to cut over 2.5. Again, clean up the edge. I just put the blade in this little opening here in my ruler, and I'm just going to cut straight through. So just drop your blade in and cut away. 2.5. Another 2.5 is 5. Keep going. If I had one more, I could. But again, I have the small ruler. They do make these a lot larger, and I have to cut 2 more. So I don't really have to clean up this edge. All I have to do is kind of just push the ruler, and it picks up my fabric. And I haven't really put too much pressure on this fabric at all. It's really gripping it very, very nicely. So we have that already at the 0, 2.5, and 5. And that's it. All right, so we have all those cut. All we have to do is open them up and cut them into squares. So we're just going to open them, and we're going to turn them 1/2 turn. And let's get this one open. I can cut all these at the same time. These are my 2.5s. I need 2 of them, right, or 8 in total. So I have 4 strips here. Again, just put my bottom of my fabric down. I don't want to waste too much. Put my blade right in the 0 and cut away. 2.5, cut away. 5, cut right through. Whoops, if I could aim. And that's pretty much all she wrote. And I have my squares all set up. Okay, this one was the 3, so same thing. I can just put my ruler right at the bottom of the strip, clean up my edge, go to the 3, cut that, go to the 6, and cut that. And I have my 3-inch squares. All right, this one was 1.5. I told you, there's a lot of cutting on the white. But I only need 2 squares at 1.5. So at the 0, the star, which is 1.5, the next star, which is 3. Okay, and I have my little squares. The rest are super easy. I have my yellow. I have to cut this the long way into 2 strips at 1.5, as it says on the directions. So the easiest way for me to do that is just to fold it. That's what I'm going to fold a lot of these, and put the fold along that 0 line. Once the fold is on the 0, I can clean up at the 0 line, 1.5 and 3, and I have my strips. Okay. I already did the orange. The orange is a little bit longer, but I did it exactly the same way. Okay, pink. What do I need for pink? Pink. I need 4.5 and 3.5. So let's cut our strips first, and then we'll use the stripology to cut the subcuts. Fold it. I'm going to go ahead, cut my 0. 1.5. Is that right? Yep. 1.5. 3. Nope. Yep. 3.5. I'm looking at the stars. And 6. Okay. So I have my 4 strips. But this time I need them at 3.5 and a 4.5 inch segment. So put them on top of each other, just like I did the white when I cut those into 2.5s and 3s. I'm just going to cut these into 3.5s and 4.5s. So line them up. Go grab your stripology ruler. Again, I place it right at the bottom of my fabric. Get it right over there and start at the 0. First one, 3.5. Right? You just look at the numbers, 3.5. So that's the first one. I can't get 4.5, so all I'm going to do is just move my ruler. And again, as I push it, it just kind of hooks right to the fabric. It just kind of grabs it right there. All right, so go over to 4.5. Go ahead and put your blade in and cut it to 4.5. So those are cut. Same thing with my multi. I need a 4.5 inch squares. One more time. Fold it, put it on the fold. I go to 4.5. Oops. Okay, I can't do another 4.5, so all I'm going to do is move this one out of the way. Get this one back up in my corner. Look for the 4.5. So you'll have this block cut in no time. And please, please, please do put Mary Ellen's Best Press on your fabric before cutting anything on your kits, because it's very important that you put some stability in these. All right, so here's 4.5, 0, 4.5. And I'm going to move my ruler over one more time. And 4.5. Okay. Pretty easy, right? Look at all these little pieces. And then the red. I need a 3 and then 2 strips at 1.5. So I'll fold it. I'll put my ruler along the fold. Give myself go over as far as I can so I don't waste too much. I need a 3, and then I need 2 1.5s. So I'm already at the star, so I can go to 4.5 and 6. Okay, this one I'm going to cut into a 3. I can go either way. I can open them and cut 2 at one time. And now I need 3-inch square. So start at the 0. Always start at the 0. I'll go to the 3 and I'll go to the 6. Boom. Okay. Really, those guides are here to help you get through all your cutting. In the future, we will be using the 1/8 marks, because you can do 7/8, 3/8, eighths, just by putting the edge of your fabric up against these dashed lines. I am going to show you how to draw your lines and trim your half square triangles as well. Okay, so the first thing, now that everything's cut, is to make your half square triangles. So you're going to take your white, you're going to draw your line down the middle. So I just take this ruler, line it up corner to corner, draw my line, and we're going to sew on either side. Okay, sew down here and up this way, which I've done here. Okay, so to cut that from corner to corner, you'll notice on the ruler I have this white dashed line that meets right at the 0. It's the white dashed line that comes down to this 0 mark, and then it heads back upwards again. So we're going to place my square right in those dashed marks. Here, if I turn it, so to do that, I find these dashed lines, and I'm just going to slide them till they meet up with my square, and then when I cut through this line, it goes right down the point, right down the middle. All right, so we're going to press these to the red, just a real quick press. And then we're going to trim, very important, we're going to trim these down to 2.5. It's in the directions, but there's only, trim to 2.5. A lot of people will miss this. So please trim these down to 2.5. And guess what? We can do that with our stripology. So I'm going to put my ruler on the line, cut through. I can see that my marking comes right down to the 2.5 mark, right where this black line meets up with my 2.5-inch groove. So I can go ahead and cut this one. Oops, get it in. And then 2.5. Go ahead and turn that and cut it in this direction. Now I have a nice white line going right down where my seam is, and I'm able to cut at my 2.5 again. So here's the line that I'm looking for. I'm going to put it right in the corner of my square so that this corner meets up, and I can go ahead and trim that off, and this corner meets up right up at the top. Right? So just cut that and this. Don't forget, please don't forget to trim. Okay? And you're going to want 4 of those. Okay, now strip sets. So that was just this one corner, but we really need to make 8 of these deep red, coral, yellow strip sets. We're going to need 8 of those, and we will also need 4 of these in total, which is just coral and yellow. And then we're going to need some whites and some coral, some extras. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is take one of our deep reds, and we're going to sew it to our coral. I know they're not the same length, that's okay. And then we're going to sew it to the yellow. So you'll notice that they're different, obviously they're different lengths. When you sew this, please stop sewing, maybe a 1/2 inch from the end. You won't need all of it. And also, when you're sewing the yellow to the coral, you can go ahead and stop. We're going to rip out a couple of stitches, but if you stop a little prior, you won't have so much to cut out. All right, so let's go sew this red to coral. And let's make a strip set. We've been making strip sets this year pretty much so far. It's just one more way. I see where the red is. I'm just going to stop right here. Okay, just short, a little bit short of that because I won't need it all, and I will need to rip out a little bit. Okay. So the next one is the yellow on the other side of the coral. So we'll put those together. And we'll go ahead and sew all the way down, and again, stop short because I'm going to need two 1.5 inch squares down at the bottom. So give me a sec. Stop a little short. Don't really have to go all the way. All right, so we're going to press pretty much everything in these strip sets to the coral as I'm adding fabric to the ends of my strips and things like that. We are pressing toward the coral, so toward the center piece of fabric. So again, hold this, push this into the coral, just give it a little hold, heat it up a little bit, I'll flip it around, and now I'm pushing the yellow toward the coral. Again, hold it, and a little bit higher. You don't have to iron all of it, just where the yellow touches the coral and just where the red touches it too. Okay? All right. So now, from this strip set, we're going to cut 4 1.5 inch segments. Then whatever's left, we're going to remove the red, and from here we're going to cut 2 1.5 inch segments of just coral and yellow, remove whatever's left, and then from the last piece we're going to cut 2 1.5 inch squares. All right, so follow along with me. Take my stripology ruler, place it along the bottom. As far over as I can, and I said 4 from each strip set. You're going to be making 2 of these strip sets. So 0, 1.5, 3, 4.5, and 6. All right. So this little piece of red's got to go. We're going to hold on to these, and I'm just going to grab my rotary, my seam ripper. Remember, I didn't go as far, so I don't have quite that many stitches to rip out. There we go. All right. Then from here, I need 2 1.5 inch. I can put it right back on right back where it was, and it's all set on the 0. So I'm going to move right over to the 1.5 and the 3. And then from here, I'm going to remove the yellow. Hold on to those. I'm going to remove the yellow. And again, I didn't sew it all the way, so I don't have to tear away that much. And I'm going to take this coral and cut it into 2 1-inch segments. Waste not, want not. So again, 1.5 and 3. So there's not much left, but you got it. You got the gist of it. And then basically all we're going to do is start sewing. Here, I'll bring it over here. We're going to start sewing kind of like a log cabin. We're going to sew this side to here, then we're going to add this, we're going to add this, add this. All right, and watch the directions to do that. And if you have any questions, of course, you can come see me. But again, these two to this one, and this one. And that's pretty much it. We're going to do the center same way. We're going to use our strip sets and add our extra pieces. So in our strip set of red or coral and yellow, we're adding a white and a white, and then again we're adding a coral and a coral to the ends. So look at your directions. If you have any questions, you know I'm here. Pretty easy block this month, just a lot of little pieces. And the last thing we want to do is our folded corner clipper. So we're going to take our 2.5-inch square. The first thing we're going to do, get right sides together. We're going to place our folded corner clipper. We're only making half of our square in a square. So we're just 2 sides. We're going to cut that. And we're going to sew this. And we're going to press it away to the corner, away from the square toward the corner. You got to press it before you add the next one. All right, so now we have nice even sides here. We're going to grab another 2.5-inch square. This time we're going to put it in this corner. It helps if you turn it. It's whatever helps you. And we're going to place our folded corner clipper in this direction this time. Go ahead and cut, and we're going to sew. And guess what? We're going to make 4. It's kind of like a half square and a square. If I had continued around on all 4 corners, it would have been a square and a square, but we're doing what looks like a house shape. All right, and we're going to need 4 of those. And then after we get all 9 pieces, we are just putting it together 3 in a row and a diamond patch. Pretty simple. If you want to play around and move some of your pieces, you can certainly do that. It's up to you. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.